So, with respect to um, conflict and evolution, this video is specifically about Christianity. So, you know, growing up, I mean, I was exposed to Christianity because my distant relatives and some of my friends who were Christians lived across the street in my home country in Sri Lanka. And they were celebrating Christmas quite exuberantly, and I partaked all the time. And I even went to the Mary's Church, sat in on various services, and tried to listen to what was being said, but had no clue at that time because of my age. But overall, in terms of Christianity, I see, as a teenager and as a young adult, I couldn't help but see the contradictions in the way some people who sort of wrap themselves in that Christian blanket, sort of, so to speak, and hold the Bible and sort of profess, and simply say Jesus is the only way without truly understanding what Jesus was actually saying and what his intent was in saying it. So I decided, okay, so these people are countering me with Bible verses, and the only way to figure this out is to pick up a Bible, and that's what I did, and started going through it a little bit. Then I realized, wait a second, the parables are not something that is resonating properly. I'm obviously missing something, and was able to gain bits and pieces of information until I was able to put it together a little bit more historically, in understanding, could there be forces that are using Christianity, just like Islam and Judaism, or the Abrahamic religions, and of course the other religions, and are religious expressions a form of control being deployed against the people on earth. This was being pointed out at various degrees of complexity by various people in terms of the stratified message of Christianity being technically a sun worship, and that the dates coincide with the winter solstice, where the sun looks like it's hanging in the same position in terms of sunrises for 3 days in a row before tracking backwards towards the summer solstice. So that all made Christianity quite interesting. So what I find absolutely amazing is the lack of consideration by the ones who are the loudest in terms of trying to profess Christianity, or trying to sort of project that identity of them first, to ensure everybody understands that they're Christian, which automatically somehow gives them some sort of moral authority or some higher status in society type of statement. And for this reason, I was sort of turned off by Christians who were that way. But I also realized that they were, actual, bishops and cardinals and others in Rome who are scientifically trained, who are significantly more capable of discourse, and then discovering the various arguments for and against, and understanding the nuances in terms of why and how some of those expressions that might have been originally expressed by Jesus that that's deviated from the original meaning, and why it may have been lost to translation, and realizing that it's also an emergent aspect of reality, and that the intent that's being projected at Christianity at certain levels, this is obviously also an emergent aspect of people pointing out certain coincidences, but as a whole, I understand why Christianity is very important, from both a Western sort of, a person who lives in Canada and who understands that morality is something that requires a certain level of foundational understandings, and that this may be a good way to get the golden rules out. And of course, understanding the connection between Judaism and Christianity for those who wish to travel that path, understand where the Ten Commandments truly come from, and what the potential might be in terms of why that was, and why that needed to be highlighted at a specific time in history when others were highlighting it in a specific way. So these are all questions that arise from looking at Christianity in an evolutionary perspective. Now, whether some of you think this is just some of the obvious stuff being stated in an evolutionary perspective in a historical context, while the temporal component, as in what actually happened in terms of intent, in terms of why some of those words and expressions have changed, is it because it was originally in Aramaic, then to potentially Greek or other languages, or Hebrew or Greek, then back and forth to Latin, and to ultimately in English in various editions, and how much might have been lost in translation in terms of what was being said. So let me know for the Christians, what you guys think in terms of how I feel. And I think Jesus as a person, as expressed in Christianity, is probably one of the most important individuals in humanity for his efforts in trying to alleviate the human condition by highlighting our shortcomings, and to treat each other the same way we treat ourselves and what we expect for ourselves, which is why that saying is so incredibly important to me. So the kingdom of heaven is truly within, and we should all collectively, I think, seek so that we shall find the true answer, which is we're all dependent on Mother Earth for survival. And irrespective of the Abrahamic understanding of dominion or trusteeship over nature, I think the true understanding is that we're stewards, and we come to that realization that we are also part of this tree of life, and we're hanging off a specific branch at 8.5 billion people, and the carrying capacity question is going to be answered by nature, whether we like it or not. And instead of assigning blame towards each other, we should truly take stock of ourselves by asking that question individually and collectively as groups, and coming to a true understanding in terms of where we truly stand.